We'll get started in 30 seconds or so. Stand by. Good morning and welcome to the April 7th Emergency Advisory Committee meeting. I'll start with a roll call, starting with Councillor Hamilton.
Good morning.
Morning. Councillor Henderson.
I am here.
Councillor Knack.
Good morning and happy birthday, Scott.
Councillor McKean.
Good morning.
Is it in fact your birthday?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Well, lucky for you, singing does not work well on any sort of video conference. So please accept the best wishes of the City of Edmonton on your birthday, if in fact it is your birthday.
It is my birthday. Thank you very much. And singing is not a COVID-friendly thing to do.
This is true. Yes, especially.
Yeah.
Yes, especially now. Fair enough. Councillor Nicol.
Good morning.
Councillor Paquette.
Good morning.
Councillor Walters.
Hello, everybody.
Councillor Bankett.
Good morning.
Councillor Carmel.
Good morning.
Councillor Caterina.
Good morning.
Councillor Zadig.
Happy birthday, Scott.
And Councillor Essinger.
Good morning. Happy birthday, Scott.
That's everybody. So we do need a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'm happy to move the agenda. I think it's straightforward.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor
Second.
Essinger. Don't need a seconder at committee, but thanks. Please vote on the adoption of the agenda.
I'm a yes.
Here it comes.
I'm a yes.
And Mr. Chair, we would also need Councillor Paquette's vote.
I'm a yes.
Got them all?
Yes.
Display the vote
Thank
then,
you.
please. Carried unanimously. The minutes from March 3rd, Councillor Knack.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will move the adoption of the meeting minutes from the March 3rd, 2021 Emergency Advisory Committee meeting.
Thank you. Any questions, concerns, errors, or omissions? Not seeing any, please vote.
And just, Mr. Chair, Councillor Zadig's vote, please.
Yes.
And we have all the votes.
Display the vote, please. Carried. Protocol items, don't think we have any for today. So we only have the one item, so, and it's what we're here for, so we'll deem 3-1 selected and go to Mr. Corbould for the verbal report on the live and rapidly changing COVID-19 situation around us. So go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good morning. Joining us remotely are members of the Executive Leadership Team, EPS and EFRS. We've also got Jen Cluth, the Chair of the COVID Recovery Advisory Team, and Dr. Chris Sikora, the Chief Medical Officer of the Edmonton Health Zone. Today's update looks at our current situation and continues the discussion about the recovery plan. Since our last meeting, we have seen movement in several key areas. The vaccination rollout is moving forward, but there have been challenges with availability of supply and predictability of distribution. The impact of variants is continuing to grow, and there are growing impacts on case numbers, hospitalizations, and ICU admissions. and these two factors are of course working against each other. Now more than ever, we need to rely on Edmontonians to be vigilant about practicing basic public health measures. These include physical distancing, mask wearing, frequent hand sanitizing, and minimal exposure to people outside their households, and most importantly, staying at home if you are sick or symptomatic. We all need to stay the course on public health measures so that we can stay the course on our recovery. So today we have information for you on 3 elements of the recovery. Those are the metrics, some key information, and actions we are taking. We have clarified the metrics we will use for monitoring the community's revitalization. We have built out a dashboard that monitors the conditions for recovery, and we will share that for your feedback today. And finally, we've identified areas of work that will require additional funding to offset COVID-19 related costs in the year 2021. Case numbers and hospitalizations are beginning to rise again, and this data, as you can see, is not good news. These rising case numbers and the speed at which they are rising are driving the restrictions that were reintroduced by the province yesterday. As always, we continue to follow the provincial government's lead on identifying appropriate public restrictions. The city's compliance officers monitor face mask usage in parks, sports fields, dog off-leash areas, recreation centres, malls, businesses, and religious centres. The team has also been attending ice rinks and other public spaces to ensure AHS guidelines and orders are being followed. Mask complaints are generally down. However, complaints about distancing have increased. Gyms, larger chain stores, and city centre mall continue to be hotspots. Compliance is strong for people observed in businesses at 99.6%, and for those businesses that have been inspected at 99%. We have observed that shopping malls and major retail stores remain highly compliant. Businesses are ensuring that patrons' counts are maintained and that patrons are complying with the face covering directions. And patrols in public spaces, transit stations, bus stops, LRT have been slightly lower for face covering compliance, but still quite high overall. The spring larger 24/7 temporary shelters will close and vulnerable people will move from larger congregate shelters to smaller, more dispersed shelters and transitional housing sites. This will allow customized interaction at each site and better coverage throughout the entire city. A number of these locations have been already transitioned, including the Mustard Seed, which has closed its shelter on 99th Street and is now operating at several churches on the south side of the river, and the Youth Empowerment and Support Services, which has opened up 70 new rooms for transitional housing. The city is working with agency operators in these new locations and is encouraging the creation of good neighbor plans for each site. In addition, the city is looking to bring additional amenities and services to these areas to help keep areas clean and safe. As the weather continues to get nicer and the days get longer, many vulnerable individuals choose to sleep outdoors. During the summer months, we expect that there will be ample shelter and transitioning housing spaces for those needing shelter. We are finalizing our encampment approach to ensure housing and agency outreach workers can interact with those sleepers and reduce the negative impacts to individuals and the surrounding communities, and indeed take into some of the recommendations we heard yesterday from the task force in terms of doing this in a very dignified and fair way. On Friday, a report will be coming to council showing the landscape of homeless serving agencies and the city support proposed during recovery to ensure the safety of those in need. Alberta is returning to step 1 of the 4-step framework to protect the health system and reduce the rising spread of COVID-19 province-wide. What does this mean? Retail services must reduce customer capacity to 15% of fire code occupancy, with a minimum of 5 customers permitted. Curbside pickup, delivery, and online services are encouraged. Shopping malls will be limited to 15% of fire code occupancy. Edmonton Public Library's in-person services have been closed. Virtual, telephone, and some contactless pickup services remain. Only one-on-one training with an individual or household is permitted for indoor fitness activities. No drop-in activities or unsupervised individual fitness indoors. Group fitness, high or low intensity, is not allowed. Outdoor physical activity is allowed with up to 10 people, provided physical distancing is maintained between households. Adult performance activities are not permitted. Performance activities including dancing, singing, acting, playing a musical instrument, and any rehearsal or theatrical performances are included in this restriction. The following mandatory public health measures come into effect at noon on Friday, April 9th. Indoor person service is no longer permitted. Takeout, curbside pickup and delivery services are permitted. Outdoor patio dining is also allowed. Tables and dining parties must be 2 meters apart or separated by an impermeable barrier that will prevent droplets. And contact information must be collected for one person of the dining party that is at the outdoor area. Yesterday, the province announced a return to step 1 of the path forward. As a result, as of midnight last night, all individual reservations for low-intensity group fitness, including aquafit, shallow water yoga, and one-on-one personal fitness training bookings at recreation centers were cancelled until further notice. All virtual programming will continue. The Kinsman Sports Centre, St. Francis Xavier Fitness Centre, and all arenas remain open for one-on-one sport performance training, youth school group bookings, and rentals. Outdoor activities continue to be permitted, and visitors are welcome to continue to explore the Edmonton Valley Zoo outdoor experience, including catching a glimpse of the newest addition to the family, a baby Bactrian camel. The driving range at Victoria opened in late March, and we are moving forward with the golf courses openings later this month, depending on weather. Stringent protocols and new measures will be implemented to comply with all of the new restrictions announced by the province yesterday. Administration continues to adapt the recreation relaunch to respond to ongoing health orders and restrictions. We continue to plan and prepare for the safe relaunch of summer programs and activities should restrictions ease and these activities be permitted. Administration will continue to work over the coming days to get a sense of the impacts of the return to step 1 on the demand of our own services and staff. Adding back cultural pursuits to our community is an important contribution to its economy and social health and wellness, and we saw this recently with Edmonton Spark in the downtown area. Later this week, I'll be convening a meeting with some festival organizers to discuss how the city can support their efforts to resume these events safely to their iconic status. We know that event organizers are thinking about the innovative approaches while remaining compliant with the public health restrictions, and we're going to have more discussions about this tomorrow night. Planning for the modified festivals and events in summer 2021 has begun with the understanding that the ability to proceed will depend on the provincial path forward. Just on shelters again, the transition to smaller shelter settings and more transitional spaces will occur through the month of April. On April 1st, Youth Empowerment and Support Services opened up a 70-unit transitional housing facility, and Homeward Trust is working through final agreements on additional transitional spaces to bring on additional rooms that will provide an equitable split between traditional emergency shelter spaces and private units more geared towards housing outcomes. The council update on this coming Friday will have more information on the homeless serving landscape from now until November, when new permanent capacity is scheduled to come online. Of the many residual effects of the pandemic on our community, the fear of assembling in public spaces is one issue that the city can work to turn around. We are pleased to be partnering with the Downtown Business Association on a series of initiatives that will inject interest and vibrancy into our downtown core and provide opportunities to profile the safe practices and behaviors that make community events viable. This spring, we will be welcoming back Edmontonians to the heart of the city and are getting ready by introducing Downtown Spark. As I mentioned earlier, this program has animated downtown streets and parks in support of the local economy and business recovery. It includes a number of art installations and activations happening throughout the downtown and will signal to Edmontonians that the heart of the city is starting to rebound. In preparation for these activations and to help encourage visitors to re-experience downtown, administration has enhanced cleanup activities using existing city resources and funding from Western Economic Diversification. This effort includes an extended spring cleanup of parks, pathways, and sidewalks adjacent to downtown Sparks areas, as well as deep cleaning of transit infrastructure, including LRT entrances, exits, green kiosks on Jasper Avenue, bus shelters, and bus benches. We are doing alley cleaning in the vicinity of the temporary shelter at the Edmonton Convention Centre, Tippinawa, and early replacement of mobile washrooms. The city's spring sweep campaign, which invites businesses to sweep their sidewalks debris onto the road for it to be removed by the city, is underway. Free Capital City cleanup litter kits are available to businesses to keep their premises and sites clean. Deep cleaning and upgrading of posturing fixtures near Jasper and 100th Avenue. There'll be a new COVID-safe format for the downtown spring walkabout, which is in development. Road and sidewalk repairs are prioritized throughout the downtown area, including brick repairs and customized sidewalks or crosswalks, trip hazard removal on concrete sidewalks, and pothole repair on roads and alleys. Improved collaboration and communication between e-scooter providers and the business improvement areas has focused on public education and service support for local businesses. In order to lead by example, the executive leadership team at administration will be conducting its own City Hall downtown buildings cleanup on the 22nd of April, and council is welcome to join in this team building exercise if you're interested. The city and Explore Edmonton have been working with Alberta Health Services to make the Expo Centre available as a vaccine site. Given the size and flexibility of the facility, it can accommodate between hundreds and thousands of people a day. We have already provided planning and facilitation services and understand that AHS will be making an announcement shortly about its intentions for the use of this space. Again, we are ready, willing, and able to accommodate and support rapid flow-through vaccination. If additional transportation planning, traffic signage, or other services are needed from the city to accommodate, we are ready to do that as well. You will recall from the last EAC meeting that we are monitoring specific conditions to ensure our approach to recovery is balanced and timely. We will monitor the health of Edmontonians by examining usage of support such as pop-up facilities and shelters, by assessing broad community indicators such as the percentage of people vaccinated, the number of hospital admissions, and the number of new cases, and by understanding the status and usage of our recreation facilities. We will monitor the health of our economy by examining intercity, interprovincial, and international travel volumes through participation levels in elementary, high school, post-secondary, daycare programs, by the number of visitors to cultural offerings such as museum, art galleries, and key festivals, by the number and progress of construction projects and startups, and by signs of mobility within the city such as transit ridership and traffic volumes. We will monitor bylaw compliance by tracking the number of tickets issued, and we monitor the adherence to safety regulations by examining compliance to public health rules. These conditions are the data points that will be tracked on our recovery dashboard. So this is an example of the Healthy Edmontonians dashboard that tracks metrics related to epidemiology, supports provided to those experiencing homelessness, facility status, and attendance levels at recreation facilities, and pedestrian and bike counts. This is the Healthy Economy dashboard. The Healthy Economy dashboard presents activities related to travel, festivals, and tourism, building and development of permits and educational institutions. And as women have been disproportionately affected by the pandemic, we are also closely tracking the unemployment rate trend data for this demographic very closely. And third, the dashboard on regulations and compliance. The regulations and compliance dashboard should look familiar to you as we've been using it for several weeks and months now. It tracks the same metrics we have been reporting to EAC each of these presentations: bylaw compliance and the number of warnings and tickets that are issued. Now, another new feature here is to the recovery dashboard is the recovery dial that we have in front of you now. It depicts the overall progress made by the city, considering all of the factors. It is unlikely that progress will be linear. We expect to experience some early steps forward and back between respond on the left and recover on the right. And in fact, the dial shifted to the left after some of the announcements in the last 24 hours. Over time, and with the vaccine rollout broadly activated, we hope that the dial will move quickly into the green area. And in light of current conditions, we are moving back into the respond phase for the moment. On December 7th, City Council set aside funds in the appropriated financial stabilization reserve to help offset 2021 COVID impacts, including COVID-related expenses. On March 15th, 2021, an additional $24.8 million was added to the funding using a portion of the 22 year and tax-supported surplus. To date, $23.8 million remains unallocated within this fund. To determine the best way to allocate these monies, administration has created a principle-based approach to assess and prioritize COVID-related expenses. A summary of these expenses will be provided to Council to address how they will be allocated. This will start on this Friday, April 9th, when a special Council report on supports for vulnerable peoples will be tabled. The remaining requests will be brought forward for consideration at the April 19th City Council meeting. Some examples of the COVID-related costs include transit, community outreach costs, offsetting the costs to run vaccination sites at Edmonton Expo, temporary patio supports, and temporary washroom facilities for vulnerable populations. These are some of the key questions that we would like to ask of Council this morning after you've reviewed this presentation. Does the dashboard help explain our progress on recovery? Are there other metrics that are missing that you would like us to profile in the dashboard? And what comments do you have on the administration as we shape our recovery strategies? Thank you, and we would be happy to take your questions and are very much interested in to hear your comments on the key metrics proposed. If Council is good with these, we would propose to take these dashboards and go live with them publicly as soon as possible. Thank you.
Well, thanks. Very comprehensive update. Obviously, a lot of moving pieces since we last spoke on this. So thank you for the presentation and the work behind it. I've got Councillor Walters, then Councillor Knack. Councillor Walters, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you, Andre, for those excellent presentation. And I think the dashboards are very clear and very effective, I presume. So thumbs up to those for me, for whatever that's worth. Can someone talk about the opening of sports fields this year, noting the new restrictions? Gotten a few questions about that. So what's our approach to outdoor sports fields and when they may open?
Councillor Walters, Rob Smythe here. We're certainly working with a lot of the sport organizing groups, but maybe I'll ask Mr. Jevany to jump in. I believe he's on the call. If he has any details around the sports fields and where that's going with our user groups. Roger?
Rob Rogers not able to be with us right now, so I'll try to take that call. We are working with the sport groups, and we understand that bookings of up to 10 youth may participate on a sports field at the same time. So we'll have to work with our colleagues in Parks and Roads to get those sports fields opened, but we understand that group bookings of up to 10 can continue.
Right, so then noting that, we would just use our, take our usual approach in terms of weather and dryness of the fields, et cetera.
Correct.
Correct, Councillor.
Okay.
From my perspective, we'll open those sports fields based on when the usual approach, as you mentioned, and then the use of those sports fields will be dictated by the restrictions imposed by the province, and we've explained what they are for the moment, and hopefully those will get better soon.
Okay. Have we made any headway in terms of shifting gears a little bit to the homeless population? Any headway in terms of vaccination strategies for people in shelters, the staff working with those folks, et cetera?
We've made some headway because we've had some discussions, and I think with the recent decisions the province made yesterday on who's allowed to get the vaccinations, we've made it clear that we would be more than pleased to help with giving access to shelters and supporting the vaccination of those sites being done on shelter. Haven't got 100% confirmation on that, but we are having dialogue with the province on that, and we keep on making it clear that, for example, if they wanted to come to the Edmonton Convention Centre anytime, we could certainly support that. And I know it's being considered at this point in time.
Okay. That's generally positive. And then you talked about, in just more generally in terms of our approach to shelter spaces, bridge housing, how we're going to deal with homeless encampments this summer, et cetera. That's what we're talking about on Friday. That's a council item on Friday, right?
Yeah, what we're going to present on Friday, Councillor, is the transition strategy between now and November, because we also have a funding request for some of that. And as part of that, we'll explain all the shelters that are going to be winding down, and those will be opening up, and how they will be in different locations. And we'll be explaining the funding aspects of that, including what the province is going to pay for and what we propose that the City of Edmonton pay for. And that'll be laid out for council on Friday.
Okay, thanks. And then lastly, just on the sort of mental health challenges arising from the pandemic, the challenges that are arising, I think there's a lot of issues that aren't really seen yet. I think there's a lot of hidden mental health, just in terms of lingering and cascading mental health challenges, as we head towards the end of the pandemic and after. How are we preparing, I suppose, in conversation with the province and any, not-for-profit, community-based partners to address that? Like, are we thinking ahead to, it's like almost preparing for the storm after the storm, so to speak?
Yeah, I would say, Councillor, there continues to be dialogue on that. I don't have a plan for you on the specifics as we come out, but it's certainly something we're monitoring. We are having discussions with, in particular, the Associate Minister of Mental Health at the province and his staff, but we're not ready yet to demonstrate that plan, but I'm sure we can be there at one of the upcoming EAC meetings in terms of specifics. I think you're absolutely right. It's going to be the longest part of the recovery. We'll have long since recovered from the physical health side of this issue of the pandemic, and still be dealing with the mental health side. And I'll just see if Dr. Sikora wants to comment on that as well.
You're absolutely right. The long-lasting effects of this pandemic are going to be quite significant. I know on our AHS side, we do have a mechanism to stand up and have stood up mental health services over the course of the past year, and we'll absolutely continue those services, those resources for Edmontonians and persons overall in an efficient way as possible to make sure we get that low barrier approach 24/7. One of our services is called Access 24/7. And certainly getting people connected with the appropriate resources that they need at that time, at that point in time, quickly is our focus.
Right. So the post-pandemic mental health plan will be intentional. Yes. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Knack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and again, thank you for the detailed presentation. To answer your first question about the dashboard, upon first look, it seems like it's the right mark. So I'll go through it a bit more detail, but I think you've got the right measures there in place. So a few questions. First, just related to, I think you touched on one of the examples in the presentation, the patio supports for restaurants. Is this including things like even expanded outdoor space for retail businesses? Like, we're going to do what we can to help allow that to happen for businesses that want to partake in that. Not everyone will want to expand out, but we're going to make sure that we're set up to allow that to happen.
Yes, certainly, Councillor Knack, as long as it's done in accordance with the restrictions, as you can imagine.
Of course.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. I guess my understanding is that, since it's that 15% limit, if you provide more space, there's just more people that can be part of that 15%. So
yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay, good. I want to ask, especially with the news, I think we saw just an hour ago, there's finally a bit of some enforcement happening in a different part of the province around folks who are regularly not following the health orders. And I guess I want to ask that question about what we're doing as a city, and I know there's always tried to be that balance, and we've heard from EPS in the past, and I'm guessing we have someone from there before or right now. around that balance between trying to provide the right for somebody to protest, but at the same time, the requirement to do that in a way that is safe, and ensure people are doing their best to follow the rules. And one of the worries I think that exists is the more you allow people to blatantly disregard the public health orders, that causes a lot of other folks who are fatigued after a year of following the rules diligently, wanting to do everything possible, to saying, well, gosh, if they're going to keep letting this happen each and every single week, maybe I will have 12 people at my outdoor gathering instead of 10, or I might do 10, but I'm going to let people go use my washroom because, that's much smaller than this that's happening each and every week. So I want to get a sense of how we're trying to manage that, because I'm not sure I'm seeing what I would like to see, but I'd be curious as to your approach and your thinking behind that. And that's, I think, both to administration and to EPS.
All right, thanks, Councillor. Maybe I'll start, and then we can hand over to the Deputy Chief at EPS. I would say the city of Edmonton and Edmontonians are doing very well. I think the data supports that in terms of, approximately 98 or 98% compliance in these places. We have everybody out there watching and looking, and we haven't let up in terms of that. I think the education approach works well as a start. People become very compliant sometimes when it's just pointed out to them very quickly. And we haven't seen a reduction in compliance over months now. But I think you're absolutely right. The more people see a lack of compliance, the more people will bend the rules. And so, which is why we're asking for Edmontonians to really dig deep and continue to follow the rules, which they have been doing largely, and we thank them for. In terms of maybe what's happening on the ground, I'll see if the Deputy Chief from EPS would like to comment.
Yes, yeah, Deputy Dean Norton.
I can weigh in.
Want me to tackle that one?
On the line, and he certainly can add some commentary as well. But I would have to agree with the city manager. It's that balance again. It's a lot of education. I know that, some people are frustrated with some of the protests that are and rallies that are taking place in the city. But again, we've noticed that our method in terms of dealing with these rallies and protests has been extremely effective in terms of things not getting out of control. And we've seen that time and time again in other areas of the province where police have stepped in to enforce some of the mask bylaws, which led to other more serious events taking place. So again, it's finding that extreme balance, but trying to educate our public. And I know that, again, the compliance rate in the city is extremely high. Dean, do you have anything else?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy. I don't. I know we're watching a lot of those protests very closely. Our liaisons are working with the organizing bodies of those events. We're getting some really good compliance from some of the organizers on these, and I know they're trying their best to manage the people that they can control. I know sometimes we get people that show up that aren't part of those organizing groups that are harder to control. But we are working with the province, again, on some of the verbiage and the language around the orders. The whole part is we are laying tickets when we see the blatant disorder. But I think the city manager said it very well. We're seeing some very good compliance in the city, and we continue to watch that. And to the deputy's point, with other areas that have been more aggressive with ticketing, we're watching to see what kind of compliance we get from a ticketing approach. And I know from some of our interactions with some of our protests, we have had a bit of a turn on a crowd when we do try to do some enforcement when people are a little bit more agitated. And we have to really balance that in terms of keeping the calm and the peace and weighing the public interest of trying to ticket at the same time as trying to quell some of the disruption there. So I hope that helps, but we are definitely watching that. I know the health safety compliance team is still meeting to discuss the challenges that each agency is faced with, and we're just trying to come up with the best strategy and balance out the compliance through education versus the ticketing.
Absolutely. I'm out of time. I'll come back for a second round, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, I'm just curious about the dispersed shelters that I think, which makes sense to me on one level, but do we know, my worry is, especially with the weather getting better, that we'll create something that will not be as amenable or as attractive as Living Rough itself, which has always been the issue. So, you know, with the dispersal of these areas, and I suspect part of that has to do with community building, I'm wondering what we're doing to actually make sure that these are spaces that people are interested in taking advantage of. I mean, they're not what we need to have, which is proper housing. So what are we doing to make sure that they're, you know, now that the weather is getting nicer, that they're actually something that is enough of an amenity to stop people going back into the river valley, going back into the parks?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I think, you know, several things I would say. We're taking a very deliberate approach to how these are set up in terms of amenities, in terms of being accessible to transit, for example, but they can also get a free transit pass, those kinds of things. We're also working with the province, and I've chatted with the province about can they help us until we have our minimum sheltered standards, which we're working on. Can they help us in the meantime to help convince others to lower their barriers as well? So that is a discussion we're having, but that'll be an easier and more clear discussion once we've presented the minimum shelter standard to council. And then, Rob, I don't know if you or your folks want to add anything to that, but we are looking.
I could just jump in, Andre. Thanks. Certainly working with Hope and Mustard Seed, and having them part of the decision making in terms of that dispersed model, and also Alberta Health Services, just in terms of reducing risk, in terms of the pandemic issues. So smaller is generally better, is the consensus we got to. And then the other important piece, Councillor, is the 24/7 piece, where these facilities are open all day long as well, and that there is adequate services there during the day. And if the individuals don't want to stay there, there are other places that those individuals can go to get those services. So it's really trying to do that 24/7 services for over the course of the spring, summer, and fall.
Yeah, my worry is, you know, that with weather no longer, you know, being a factor, that I completely get it. I completely understand why people would prefer to set up camp in the river valley than go into some of these shelters. And if we want them to be effective, I think we have to keep that in mind, or we'll have, you know, that's the question I'm raising, and I think that probably will take some extra thinking, some extra effort. I don't know what that looks like, but anyway, I wanted to raise that question now, because I think otherwise, I mean, that has been our experience in the past. We've had empty shelter beds and tons of people living rough. So, and I get it. I understand why they would make that choice. I have some other kind of less critical questions, I suppose. I'm curious to know. I was reminded with your talk about downtown. Are we looking at finally turning the fountain on again in front of City Hall? You know, and I would say programming Churchill Square again, which is something we didn't do last summer. I mean, a lot of people, I think the fountain's gone. I've seen it work in the test, and would be great to have it back again. So I'm just wondering if that's part of our thinking in terms of making downtown, the outdoors of downtown, more attractive again this summer.
Does anybody have an answer on that one? I don't know myself.
Yeah, Andre, I don't either, but we can certainly circle back. And we'll get
I thought it was time to ask the question, especially if we're putting that effort into downtown, not taking our own outdoor amenities and making them fully functional. I think would be a missed opportunity. And I just to do a double check too, proactively, I presume that the original plan, which was to do the spray parks again this summer, is still on.
Councillor, we're working with Alberta Health Services to make a final determination if both the fountain in front of City Hall and the spray parks can be activated.
Great.
So no decision at this point, but Alberta Health Services is in that loop.
Well, I you know, if we're doing other things to bring people back into the heart of the city, I think that's a simple one. E-scooters is the one other one that I raise this here because it has, I think, something to do with making sidewalks, you know, given our limited space on sidewalks. I mean, I'm really, as long as we're just doing, we've had 3 years of education which are achieving absolutely nothing in terms of keeping people off sidewalks. We've yet to give out a ticket, is my understanding. So are we looking at actually finally doing some enforcement? I think that's the only thing that's actually going to get compliance.
Councillor Henderson, Brian Simpson here. I can offer not so much on the enforcement end, but we've seen the companies take an active role in working with the BIAs in the downtown. Also looking at the educational component with riders of the scooters. They've definitely taken a much more active role in this process. We're hoping that'll be part of the functionality. In terms of enforcement, though, I can't give you any more information.
Well, I think we should look at it. I've had this conversation with the e-scooter guys for 3 years now, and they keep on saying they're working on it. So great, thanks.
Councillor Banga?
Thank you. Thanks for all this information. I'm going to start with Dr. Sikora. Dr. Sikora, at the start of the pandemic, we heard the term R-value quite often. Is that a forgotten term right now, or what's happening with that?
That's a good question. Thank you very much, Councillor Banga. R-value really still is a thing. Alberta Health had committed to publishing the current data for the previous representative week on their website. The R-value for the city, for the Edmonton zone, is 1.18. What that means is for every new case that is identified, there's 1.18 other cases that are associated with it, roughly, which in the grand scheme of things, that means we're on that upward trajectory of the pandemic curve, and that really does highlight our experience in the past several weeks, showing that we're getting more and more cases per day instead of less and less. So our value is over 1. That means that the cases are expanding within our particular health region. And I believe that that's part of the reason why we are back to step 1 from a pandemic recovery phase, because we're seeing more and more cases.
Thank you. Again, in the outer skirts of the town, there public urination is one of the issues or sources of complaints, because there are no bathrooms in the parks, especially the older folks. When they gotta go. And are we just talking about the public washrooms only downtown, or outside downtown too?
Councillor, certainly our focus has been in the core of the city, where the issues are just that much more magnified. Certainly, as we work on a longer term strategy, the need for washrooms in some other areas of the city certainly has been identified. But at this point in time, our priority is in that more core area. But certainly, it is on our radar screen, and we're not dismissing it by any means.
Okay. And e-scooters. I know last year when we did go to work, or a year before, the scooters were all over the sidewalks and whatnot. I am hearing that there is going to be some kind of improvement in the placement of those. So I got 2 questions. One is about the placement, and the other one is about the cleaning protocols. Do we know if they are being properly cleaned, and how often they are, if they are?
Councillor Banga, Brian Simpson here. A couple of pieces of information relative to that. The actual cleaning of the scooters will happen each night. There is notification to any of the users that the cleaning protocols, putting the responsibility on the users to make sure they're cleaning their hands and looking after themselves after the use of the scooters. Also, they have designated areas for the scooters to be parked. We're not necessarily seeing that always being complied with, of course, and also the industry is aware of that sensitivity, and they've just asked to be responsive to the needs to pick up and put those scooters in the proper place, just in terms of the rest of the public's access to sidewalks and other areas of the city.
Okay, and so basically it's an honor system for the cleanup, right?
It is an honor system, and it is that public education piece, yes.
Okay. All right, and so how do these three companies that they keep track of those? I mean, they say that they're doing it, and do they actually tell us how they're doing it?
Part of it's telling us how they do it, but also just in terms of potential 311 complaints. The business community is keeping us informed in terms of any issues or concerns. There's definitely been more communication with the business community from the companies. They've taken a major step forward in terms of just having that relationship. So there is communication coming from various assets, and based on that, we react to those situations and share that information with those companies to hold them accountable for the process, but also work on the business model to meet their needs also.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cartmel.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation and the information. First of all, just a quick question on swimming pools. Wondering if this recent change in restrictions affects our indoor pools.
Nicole, can you jump in on that one, Nicole?
Yeah, so our understanding is that one-on-one is still allowed. However, we are working through all of our closures and all of our programming and reviewing all of that today. We'll have final details on that this afternoon, and our supervisors are working on that right now.
Thank you. And then perhaps extending that question to outdoor pools. Are we contemplating being able to open outdoor pools?
So currently outdoor pools are considered within step 4. So we are working with Alberta Health Services and Alberta Health to understand when and how those will be able to open. But we continue to plan so that in the event they are able to open, we will be prepared and ready to open.
Well, I wonder that, will there not be a real inclination by people to get outside as much as they can? Understanding that there, restrictions on gathering indoors are probably going to continue for a while. The desire to get out, recreate, to some degree congregate, do our outdoor pools provide at least some opportunity for that? So perhaps we can advance opening those things in a safe way, those outdoor pools in a safe way ahead of other step 4. Is that a possibility we can discuss?
So I would pass that one over to Dr. Sikora to advise on.
I think it's something that can be looked at, and certainly City of Edmonton would be one of many municipalities that would have a great deal of interest on that around the outdoor pools, and certainly we in AHS are very much willing to chat with our municipalities and our municipal partners and helping plan what that could look like. Ultimate decision will be from Alberta Health as to where that goes in the phase of a reopening. We're back to step 1. I'm sorry about that. But we still do have an interest in planning for what a reopening looks like in a safe manner.
Fair enough. Yeah, I appreciate that, Dr. Sikora. It's just, it seems there's a bit of a differentiation between outside and inside. And so if we can explore that and try to accommodate what people are going to be inclined to do anyway, would be helpful, I think. Yeah, thank you. So at the risk of being a little provocative, I want to turn back to the question around our shelter strategy. And Mr. Corbould, if this is going to be discussed more on Friday, then I'm happy to wait for an answer then. But I understood Mr. Smythe to say that part of that strategy is looking at spaces for our vulnerable populations that are smaller, less people in one place. And that we're also looking at trying to accommodate a strategy that allows for 24/7 places to be, if I can say it that way. I'm wondering, first of all, if that extends to a strategy, understanding Councillor Henderson's comments around how living rough might be more appealing to some, particularly in the warmer months. If we're looking at a way to accommodate that inclination, to both live rough, but also to provide some accommodation for people to gather in the day that's an outdoor space. I appreciate the idea of a 24/7 space to gather and a 24/7 sort of shelter operation. But when it's 23 above in the middle of July, no one wants to be inside. So are we looking at something like that too, that sort of gathers sort of all of those threads in a bundle? I'm not sure if I'm articulating that very well, but curious about your thoughts.
Yeah, Councillor, I think that's well understood, and it's certainly the areas we're looking at. We haven't finished the work on the outdoor in particular, but we are examining places. Certainly, part of the plan we'll present on Friday includes day use areas that will have an indoor component, but also have an outdoor component, as I understand it. And so we are particularly looking at not just what people do overnight, but where do they need to go during the day to get supports and help, but also, you know, to do what they may want to do as well. So we are looking at all of that. We'll present some of it on Friday, but there's also more work to do. And I think the other thing there's more work to do on that's kind of tied to what we heard yesterday from the task force is how we enforce those outdoor spaces and how we take a much more deliberate stepped approach to it that includes dignity along every step of the way. And so more work going into that'll be presented not this Friday, but at a later council meeting.
Thank you. I agree in all respects. Thanks for that answer, Mr. Corbett.
Thank you. Councillor Essinger?
Thank you. And I'll start with the outdoors, Mr. Smythe, about the spray parks. Because I think last year we didn't open them all. But this year, are we looking at opening all spray parks? And is there I think we talked about postponing when we open them at some point. Is that correct?
That is correct, Councillor. Basically, there was a financial dimension to some of those recommendations. That was a bit of a later opening for some of our pools, as well as some of the spray parks. I don't have the actual dates as to when some of the spray parks could be opened, but it's certainly in scope in terms of our work with Alberta Health. So we're trying to lump in both the City Hall fountain, the spray parks, and our outdoor pools into that work we're doing with Alberta Health Services to potentially launch all of those opportunities over the course of the summer. But certainly take your point about, is there a possibility that we can advance as to when those could be activated?
Because I heard from many communities, they wish their local spray park was open last year. So I think we have to find ways to accommodate them, maybe, especially if we're going to be outside all summer. So I appreciate that. Mr. Corbell, I really appreciated the healthy indicators, but on my copy of the presentation, I was missing the healthy economy slide. It's a duplicate of the healthy Edmonton slide. But you talked about adding a section on how women would be impacted by the economy. Did I understand that?
Yes, sorry about that, Councillor. We'll make sure you get the complete deck. But yeah, in terms of the healthy economy, we had specifically wanted to track closely the unemployment rate for women, given that we've reported earlier on the fact that women were disproportionately affected through unemployment because of COVID. And so we thought that was a very relevant piece of data to track closely. So it would be a specific report on the healthy economy piece because of what we've reported through our, and because of the fact that we're looking at these through a GBA plus lens now.
Well, I think it's important, and really what that is going to show us also about the state of childcare, because women need adequate childcare to return to work, and that's one of the barriers. So it's going to show us that when we begin to understand that. I appreciate that. On the business front, because I can't see the economy sheet, do you talk about the state of business, getting data from BIAs, perhaps business licenses? How do we know they're doing well?
Yes, we do. It's not necessarily on the front dashboard because we kind of have a lot of room for, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Just bear with me. Yeah, sorry, business licenses are something we're reporting on. There's actually a lot of business data we could not fit onto the dashboard, but we do have weekly updates and we can share those with council in terms of the number of licenses, the number of permitting that's going on. And I recently saw an update in terms of increases to staff and focus on the businessing. So Ms. McCabe's got people focused on this, the startups, if you will, and business licensing issuance. So I don't know if Ms. McCabe, you want to comment on that more?
I think Andre, Mr. Colorado covered it off really well, that we understand that there's an increase in home improvement permits this year, as well as an increase in some of the single family homes in areas. So we're making sure that we've got the right staffing level to meet the expectations of Edmontonians in the development community through the summer.
My other question is, and I know BIAs collect this data, was they know how many businesses are closing in their areas. I mean, it kind of helps us track. Do we track that as well? Are we aware of it?
We have business license data in terms of the number of people who are renewing their business licenses, and we work actively with the BIAs. We meet with them weekly, so any data that they have for sure gets fed to us in terms of closures.
Because it'd be just nice to understand that, to see how it's impacting our communities. It's great to have the positive, but we have to understand the flip side as well. I think it'll help us as we move forward. And finally, my last few moments, violence data was missing on the last report on the, I think, recover, whatever that report was on April 1st. Are we not going to provide that anymore?
No,
We were always tracking it, and then it missed on the last one.
yeah, we need to track that, and we will, Councillor, and I'll make sure we address that in the report.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McKean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Corbould, River Valley communities in Ward 6 have had a lot of encampment and side effects from that. Can you say anything on the record about, we had Camp Pekawaywen last year near or in Rossdale, whether or not that would be allowed to reestablish?
Well, we certainly, that's certainly not the outcome we want, and I would say we're doing everything that we can do to try to offer other positions and spaces, which we'll talk a bit more on Friday. And we're also working on a much more comprehensive strategy in terms of what we do when some of those camps start to pop up, which we're seeing some of now, and working with people on a different approach for how we can try to convince people to go other places. In the end, in terms of enforcement of this and, you know, disbanding these places, that'll be a decision that we will have to consider in the future. But I think it's a last resort decision, and we have to make sure that we've been treating folks with dignity and we've been giving them all the potential opportunities that they can, so that they don't have to do that. I'm not sure I can declare 100% that it won't happen. I simply, we don't have that level of control over people. However, we're doing our best to give them other opportunities, other outlets, other amenities that they can find in other places. And we're also going to change and address how we ask them to leave if we get to that point.
Are we also, has there been any outreach to the organizers of the camps, that Camp Pekawaywen and the one in Old Strathcona, to include them in our thinking, just because I suspect that they may be waiting to see how well we respond, and if they feel we don't, then they're going to want to repeat what they did last summer. So I think involving them would be wise.
I don't know. Rob, are you aware?
Certainly, Councillor, we've not circled back with the organizers at this point, but we can certainly take that back and proceed down that path. The only other point is that I'll just make sure Council's aware is the strategy around a camp for the homeless individuals and a camp that is a protest camp. and our strategy working with EPS in terms of how we respond to those two scenarios is important to us. So we're trying to, it's a fine line sometimes, but certainly trying to have a unique strategy for both of those scenarios.
Yeah, and this is such a delicate and difficult task, but I know, Mr. Corbould, you know that how much outreach I've been receiving from not just those communities, but the downtown businesses. There are side effects from having a vulnerable community concentrated in an area, and we've got to look after everybody's interests. And there's a lot of concern in those River Valley communities about the amount of social disorder and unfortunately petty crime that goes along with this. So I look forward to hearing more about your plans on Friday, but I must ask those questions on behalf of the people that live in those communities and have felt everything from annoyance to real fear over some of the situations. So, Dr. Sikora, good morning. It's come out, I think it was even in the media, suggestion that sometimes the pharmacies that have vaccines, they reach a point where they're about to expire. And I just wondered if Alberta Health Services is working on any kind of system that would allow a dispersal of those vaccines before they expire, maybe to those who aren't necessarily next on the list, but the more, you know, I think the goal here is to get everybody vaccinated, whether they're 22 years old or 82 years old. So has there been any thought on that?
Well, certainly, and thanks very much for the question, Councillor McKeon. It's a good question. So all of our immunizers, whether they be our private pharmacy partners or our Alberta Health Services run public health clinics, have to have a mechanism in place to disperse appropriately of otherwise not fully booked doses at the end of the day, at the end of a work day, because because the other mechanism and principle that we want to adhere to is there are going to be no wasted doses. Those doses are best used in an arm to protect an individual, so that we and pharmacy are not wasting any doses. What that results in and has resulted in over the past couple weeks is, at the end of the day, if there are a couple extra doses or doses that have not been otherwise utilized in an open vial, and we often get several doses out of a vial, those should go to eligible individuals, and that's up to the immunizing sites, whether it be a pharmacy or a public health clinic, to book or at least have a plan as to how you may best utilize those. I see the announcement from our Alberta Health Partners is that starting April 7th at 8 a.m., anyone born after 2015, anyone born prior to 2015, with an underlying health condition can book, so that we functionally have an open availability for anyone with underlying medical conditions over the age of 16 to have that ability to book. So that is helpful. So certainly more and more Albertans become eligible for COVID-19 protection through the immunization. And of course, it does continue that all of our partners, pharmacies, as well as public health, will have to have a strategy to expend those doses at the end of the day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Caterina? Sorry, we lost you there on the list. Not sure what happened, but go ahead. You're next.
Thank you for that. That's fine. So start with the Expo Center. That has announcement is imminent. Is that what I'm understanding? That it will be used as a vaccination site?
Yes, Councillor, we certainly offered it up. As we've been saying for months now, we're ready, willing, and able to do that. And we believe that there will be a take-up on that, given the amount of vaccination that might be coming in soon. And we're just waiting. So we're ready to go, and we're just waiting for a formal decision from the province.
Okay, and I guess the terms of it ongoing for duration of the vaccination rollout?
Yeah, certainly, Councillor. The way the commitments work is AHS is paying for and has contracted out all the health indoor aspects of it. We are providing sort of outdoor aspects of it, if you will, to put it simply, and we're prepared to do that right up until October, and we will present to Council what the financial implications are of that on the 19th of April when we go to Council with COVID expenditures. But I believe if the site is required for all the way to October, which I would think would be doubtful, I think we'll get more vaccinations done before then. But if it were, that worst case, I think would end up costing us $1.3 million.
Okay, I'm actually supportive of that idea of using the site for that purpose, and I think it'll do us both good, the city and the province. A lot of what we're talking about today actually relates to Friday's information on the shelters, 24/7 location, sites, and that. Mr. Smythe, is there anything that you can relay or make available today that you're going to be coming forward on Friday with? I'd like to ask some questions today for things, but obviously you haven't made those details available today.
No, we still want to do some fine tuning internally, Councillor. But Friday, certainly the exact sites and location, and then of course the recommendations for funding, which will be a council decision for Friday. So we can provide that granular level of details. It's not finalized at this moment in time, but we do want to, over the course of the balance of today, finalize it with our provincial contacts. And then get that report to Council as soon as we possibly can. So you have a bit of advance time to sift through it and then hopefully make decisions on Friday.
Okay, so in generalities then, consideration for concentration of sites in any particular area, that's been taken into account. Good neighbor plans are already in place. We're not trying to develop new plans going along. We've had lots of experience with good neighbor plans or promise plans that those should be in place. Enforcement of social disorder, EPS is on top of that they know what happened in the past and what's happening right today and what will happen after Friday. If that's all in place already, or we have to start from scratch again on each location and developing strategies for mitigation and good neighbor agreements, that sort of thing.
Well, certainly, Councillor, those wheels are in motion to different levels of completion, but certainly those are all important elements to make these facilities successful. I mean, we've learned over the last couple of years in terms of the ups and downs and challenges that we have, and the examples you referenced are critical pieces. And then importantly, as you're well aware, the city has some oversight, but it's the operators that have to lead the charge. So working with primarily Hope and Mustard Seed as the operators to work with them to make those good neighbor plans real and active with community. So yeah, all very appropriate bodies of work that are underway.
And I would just add, Councillor, that we do have several weeks to finalize all those plans. Friday is really the financial decision to Council, and then so that we can so they're work ongoing, but we're not standing up these places on Friday. It's just coming for a decision.
Okay, and with the outdoor spaces, that's been taken into consideration as well with the concentration of indoor 24/7 plus available space outside, which is either good or bad depending on location. It could affect major parks. It could affect the river valley in the vicinity of these new locations.
It's certainly the point that was made earlier, and you're making it again, Councillor, around outdoor space for individuals to be part of is important, and that is part of our plan. as we look at over the course of the summertime. Being indoors, as you say, all day long is not, no one wants to do that. So we do want to provide some outdoor space where these individuals can participate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zadig?
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Lots of moving parts as usual. Was anything mentioned about dog parks? Maybe I missed that. Are they going to remain open?
I believe they are still open. They have not been restricted. I think there's restrictions in terms of gathering. So there's a number, for example, of groups. But yes, as long as the restrictions are followed, I would see no reason to restrict them. But if somebody else has different information, please speak up, and we can triple confirm that after the meeting.
Brian Simpson here, and they are open and just following AHS COVID rules in terms of gatherings and public gathering places. But no, they are right now planning to be open.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that. That's good news because, yeah, of course, last year we had them closed when we were still learning more about the virus. But I'll flag as administration flag last year that there's that potential for dog walkers and people in the parks to gather. But I think with just I think if we're just mindful of enforcing against that, but keeping the parks actually open throughout the whole summer, that'd be great, in my opinion. And with that, no more questions. Thanks for everything.
Thank you. Do we have, in the presentation, I had the same question and note that Councillor Esslinger had about the second healthy economy dash slide I missed it on the slides here. I think they were different. It's just what was emailed to us. Can you bring that back up?
Yes, we can do that. So that was slide 14, I believe.
Okay.
If we've corrected it, because that was in that problem was in the master slides.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think we have it fixed though.
Yeah, and I think the indicators are listed in another slide, and the indicators look like the right things to be tracking for that. So I think my other question about the dashboard has more to do with the third slide, which is the overall kind of needle. And I do have a worry and a caution around that, which is that as societally we are back into, in this jurisdiction, either provincially or at the Edmonton zone level, we're very much back into an active response phase, and I think that it's important to communicate that urgency. And I thank Dr. Sikora, as always, for being here and for providing that. But you can read that as things are slipping backwards, when I think the bulk of this presentation, beyond the actually what's happening with the virus right now, which is very serious, but which is in the hands of other jurisdictions having authority who are responding to that seriousness. I think, our emphasis over the last little while has been increasingly on supporting recovery, particularly for business and particularly for vulnerable people. And I just worry about the impression that the speedometer gives of it being one or the other, when I think that at this point we need to walk and chew gum and really be as focused on supporting recovery as vaccination enables it to accelerate. So I know that is your position, Mr. Corbould. My concern is that third dashboard indicator doesn't communicate that the city's commitment to recovery and preparation for recovery and support for recovery on the face of it. So that one, honestly, I'm not wild about. If there were two, which is what's our current response and where's our attention, because I think a lot of our attention is on recovery, because again, the authorities having jurisdiction have focus on the response right now. So I guess your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think, as you say it, I think you're right. And so I think we could easily do the two, where we have a response dial and a recovery dial. And because I think your comments are accurate, because despite the fact that we've gone backwards a bit in terms of conditions based on the medical situation and the status of the pandemic, we continue to recover, including meetings I had this morning in terms of planning for recovery. So we'll take that back and separate the two so that you can see kind of the response dial and a recover dial, which continues to move forward.
Yeah, and I think maybe if there are two, there is one which is what is the seriousness of the situation, kind of like the fire risk dial. And I think it's very important that we send a clear signal that this situation is very serious, again, particularly because of the variants. So I don't want us, I think it's a mixed message because it's not a zero sum between the severity of the public health situation that we're dealing with and the importance of working towards recovery. I think those have to happen in parallel, and so I think you understand that, and I think there's a way to reflect that. So thank you for taking that feedback. Did we get the slide of the business dashboard or the economy dashboard? Next, okay, there it is.
And
Perfect.
that is the right one.
Yeah, that's, I mean, I again, looking at the headings, I think those are the kinds of things we would want to monitor. So that's good, and I think it's important to share, you know, in essence, I think that's the, if we can go back a slide, you know, that's sort of the severity set of indicators, though there are very much recovery pieces related to housing there in particular. And then the other one is I just want to make sure our business community understands that we're very focused on supporting success and recovery here, particularly in light of the additional restrictions that are going to impact parts of our hospitality sector again here now for the right reasons. So those are questions I have, and feedback I have about the dashboard. And I think I have lots of questions about the shelter situation and those transitions, but I think I can leave those for Friday once we have the benefit of some more discussion. I guess Dr. Sikora, maybe just one question. That 1.18 R factor, is that doubling every 4 weeks? Left unmitigated?
I think left unmitigated, we'd have, it would lead to exponential growth. But I think as we've previously described, we're in somewhat of a race. Of course, expansion of variants that are more easily transmitted and potentially more severe on one side, and on the other side of that is the expansion, ever expanding immunization program, which counteracts that. It really does protect our population overall. So I think reinforcing that we have to be in this protective environment for some time longer yet. We have to allow for expansion of that immunization program throughout our population and be ever vigilant around the physical distancing, symptom checking, testing when appropriate, and use of hand hygiene and masking.
And the hospitalization rates are lagging indicators, but all indications right now are that those are starting to rise in proportion to mitigated somewhat by mass vaccination of the most vulnerable population, but that we're likely to see a rise based on the current rate of infection or the current instance of infection in hospitalization. We shouldn't be surprised to see that in the coming weeks.
That's correct. We wouldn't be surprised to see that. At present, we have about 100 hospitalized in the Edmonton zone and about 20 within the intensive care environment. Given that those are lagging indicators, I would expect those to rise over the next days to weeks.
And is there a goal that you're aware of with respect to what we need to get the R value down to? Again, I know the circumstances are different because we're racing towards the vaccine, but the goal in November, December was to get R down to 0.8 to try to get back out in front. Is there a stated goal that you're aware of for what we need to get R back down to in this case?
I'm not sure if there's a stated goal. Anything below 1 is preferred. because that means that we're on that downward trajectory overall. And of course, our ability to contact trace and contain virus when it is identified is a big part of that. But certainly all the efforts around contact tracing and our population efforts of staying healthy and staying out of those environments where you could acquire COVID-19 are certainly helpful in helping reduce that R value to a less than one, more ideal state than we're at right now.
Great. Well, thank you. I think I'm probably out of time. Who is next? If we can bring back the speaking order again. Go way out of time. Councillor Knack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
The R value of my questioning was 1.1.
Dr. Sikora, I wanted to ask a little bit more about the variant. So I've been trying to watch as many of the briefings as I can when I have the opportunity, or to watch them at later times. But I'm just not as familiar because I haven't had as much opportunity. And so my understanding is that this variant has, of course, a greater spread, but is also having a greater impact on those in the ages that are of folks who haven't been vaccinated yet. So we've been doing a great job vaccinating those over 65 in particular. Now that sort of 30 to 55 demographic I hear is being more impacted. I think I heard the Premier talk about that. So I wonder if you could just spend a bit of time sharing, what we're dealing with right now and why we need to remind ourselves to stay vigilant in this next little while.
No, sure, and that's a great question. When we describe variants of concerns, we're describing this catch-all group of viruses that have mutated or changed significantly from our original COVID strain that had emerged about a year ago. And those variants have emerged around the world, and we often would refer to them as a P1, or with a series of letters and numbers, or sometimes based on their original area where they were identified from, either Brazil, South Africa, UK. And it is a catch-all term for variants, and we try to describe them as one entity, but in reality, they're a very divergent entity. What we've seen with them is generally they're more transmissible. So a range of anywhere from 20 to 70% more easily transmitted from person to person, which means they can spread faster within a population. Some of the variants do have increased morbidity and mortality, as in they're a worse virus overall. And in populations where we've had protection, where we have good protection for an over 75 congregate living population, they would necessarily be more expansive within that younger age group. So while we try generalizing, even though that might not be 100% correct, in general, more easily transmitted, they may be of greater significance in terms of illness and death within age groups that are otherwise not adequately protected. So very concerned overall.
Thank you. And I've asked about this, I think, a couple different times, but worth maybe revisiting now. What are you seeing in some of the long-term impacts? I hear the phrase COVID long hauler or something being used for folks that maybe had this early on. Do we have any more insights of folks that, maybe got through it, made it through with relatively, maybe they didn't have to go to ICU, they might have had to go to hospital, or might have had just some severe impacts, but have seemingly stuck with them for months? And I'm wondering if what you're hearing about the original virus, and then even with some of these variants, because I think there's, in my mind, there's still some assumptions that, I'm 37, I'm pretty healthy, so if I got COVID, I'm probably going to be fine and nothing to worry about. I'll happen to have, I've got it, and then I can move on with my life. But not everyone has had that experience, so I'm just curious as to what you can share around that.
And that's a great question. When we look at the population level impacts of COVID, we've described mental health impacts, financial impacts, educational, life course impacts, and those are sort of at a very high population level, and those will require a significant amount of work together amongst everyone around this table to be able to help our population recover. When we look at the physical health impacts on the individual level, again, the evidence is emerging, and there's a lot of international research and collaboration on this to help describe what are some of those long-term health outcomes, and how do we best accommodate, and how do we best address those? Because not everyone does recover 100%. And some of those pulmonary and cardiovascular effects can be long lasting, and certainly not everybody successfully comes out of ICU. Not everyone successfully comes out of a hospital environment with after having recovered from COVID. So certainly what we've done within the Edmonton area and across Alberta is have post-COVID rehab clinics. So some set up with our primary care network clinic environments, also in collaboration with the University of Alberta, to be able to serve as that referral center and that support center for primary care physicians who are helping patients and their patients through COVID, a post-COVID world. So we're considering it, we're working towards it, and we have a really collaborative effort to be able to help address it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Banga?
Thank you. Dr. Sikora, now the schools are open for a while, so we would probably have pretty good data to evaluate that. What are the current main super spreaders in the community? Event types.
So what we've seen over the past number of weeks around spreading events are within household environments and within settings where congregates gatherings have occurred. Restaurants, other environments where people have gathered and maybe not have been 100% compliant with the necessary measures to help reduce spread. And I think that's the ultimate reason why a decision was made yesterday to shift from step 2 back to step 1, where those precautions and those measures can be further reinforced to help reduce spread overall. Our school environments are otherwise left unchanged. The restrictions that are presently in place for many of our school environments are still active. So the cleaning, the record keeping, physical distancing, hand hygiene, masking is appropriate, and as designed are all certainly very, very appropriate for those school contexts. And certainly we support our school boards, our school districts in helping investigate any cases that are identified and helping return those schools, teachers, and students back to states of health overall.
Thank you. And my next question is for Edmund. The number of development applications remained about the same, or they even increased in some cases. And there were some people laid off in anticipation of decreased workload. Are we calling those folks back?
Councillor Banga, Ms. McCabe here. We are working to make sure that we have the right staffing levels associated with the development permit demand and the right level, the right skill set associated with that. So it wouldn't be that we're recalling staff, but we are looking to post staff, and we're working with the union on unionized positions to make sure that we've got that we follow the unionized rules to bring people back who fit the skill set of the position that we're looking for.
Thank you. And for the EPS reps, it would be totally unjust if I didn't ask my question. And we got those people in the middle of the intersection on the median asking for help with a 2x2 sign or something. Do we have any mechanism to deal with those folks? And if so, are we doing that?
Yeah, Councillor Banga, Dean Hilton here. That comes up every year. We do try and address that for sure. Moving them, they're not supposed to be on a roadway or a surface and those kinds of things. So, yeah, we do what we can to try and move them along. Again, I think it goes back to that whole people in need type of situation where we have to work with the outreach and the other agencies to try and get them the supports they need. But yeah, we do take some efforts to try and work with them and the city on addressing that.
Okay. So what bylaw do we use right now? Anyway, now that I'm trying to test your knowledge.
You are testing my knowledge. It's a little rusty on me there right now, but I remember last year dealing with it there. I just can't remember what the section was that we were following up with.
Oh, okay. I thought it was stunting or something. But anyhow, this is a pretty, I guess, large issue in the on 91 Street, et cetera, and some other intersections. But anyway, I hope that you guys are taking it a little bit serious. Thank you.
Councillor Henderson?
Yeah, I was interested looking at that economy slide on the graphs for development permits and building permits, which look like they have just plummeted. What's puzzling about that is, Councillor Hamilton and I were talking yesterday about what we're hearing anecdotally, which is that there's a lack of supply and a high demand for new housing. So I'm just puzzled by that. I was going to ask a question about if there is a ramp up, which may be happening. It's certainly happening in the rest of the country in demand. What our capacity is to deal with a flood of applications that may be coming. So the numbers, and then seeing that slide tend to suggest something else, unless there's a plug somewhere else in the system. So, any thoughts on where we're at on that?
Councillor Henderson, Ms. McCabe here, great observation. I think what we're seeing here is the aggregation of all of the data. So we are seeing large demand in single family homes in new neighborhoods. We have seen a very large decrease in commercial and retail pickup. And so we are making sure that we've got the right staffing levels with the right skill set for where we're seeing the demand in the summer. And we're actively recruiting right now to make sure that we're able to meet the demand, because we are anticipating that it'll be a very busy summer for new home construction.
Yeah, great, because that was really the essence of what I thought was going to be my question until I saw this slide, which was, do we have the capacity to deal with what may be a flood of applications for subdivision and then development permit and building permit? So we are, because I know that this will bump into our reserve question, I suspect. So the capacity is there?
It will. We are working to make sure that we've got the right capacity at the same time as making sure that we are being good financial stewards of the reserve.
Great, thanks. The other thing that I'm interested in, and these may be complicated numbers to get, that I wondered about that we needed to understand on the economy side is, there's certain kinds of businesses that I think are still, there are certain areas of business that are really struggling. There's some other ones that have pivoted in quite remarkable ways. And a lot of our resources went to support those pivots. So I'm wondering if one of the things I'd be interested in knowing in terms of that information is maybe a little bit of a more fine-grained information on what's actually happening out there, in terms of what kind of businesses have pivoted well, what kind of businesses may be holding on, and what kind of businesses may need more help, because I'm not sure it's a across-the-board kind of question. And whether or not that's the kind of thing we could track in that, because I think we need better. I know the information's hard to get, but I think better information in that area will help us make better choices, and that just assuming it's all one amalgam is probably not going to help. And so is there any way to track those kind of things? In that
Councillor
economy
Henderson,
slide?
we can take a look at that in terms of looking at the business license data by category and work with Jennifer Kluth and team to see if there's some more fine-grained data we can get on that slide, because you're correct. The pandemic has not impacted at all business sectors in the same way.
No, and it's interesting. I had this conversation, with Old Strathcona Business Association, and again, their observation is the same. It has not played out the way we necessarily could have predicted, and I think understanding that may be important in terms of that question that the mayor was asking about that move to continue to work on the recover, even if we're still in respond in some areas, because I think there may be some places that. Yeah, anyway, you understand my question of, I don't know if there's an easy way to track it, but it would be an interesting question to track. One final question, and I know Councillor Knack raised this with me, and I thought he was going to raise it, but he ran out of time. Where are we at on the shared streets? His understanding is that Calgary's had theirs up and running for a month. So just in terms of when we're going to get those going again, because I know we're committed to doing them again. I'm just wondering what our timelines are like.
Councillor Henderson, Brian Simpson here. We're just working through the spring sweep just to get those streets cleaned, and then they'll be followed up with the shared street process, much like last year using the matrix that in terms of establishing where they will be.
So we can literally follow the sweepers with we're not going to wait to do all the sweeping until we open them. We can literally follow the sweepers through.
I'd have to check on that, but the plan was once the spring sweep was complete was to get those laneways in place. But I can get back to you with more current information.
To me, I mean, that's a month and a half long process, and some of the areas that we had as shared streets, I think were if they're swept, I don't know why we couldn't follow through and do them in that order. So anyway, it'd be great to hear back on that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Good discussion then. I need a motion to receive for information.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Don't see anyone else on the speakers list, so please vote on receipt of information.
We have all the votes, Mr. Mayor, except for the following, Councillors Banga, Zadek, and, now Councillors Banga and Esslinger.
Yes.
Yes, for me too.
And yes for me.
Display the vote, please. Information is received. With thanks to Dr. Sikora and the folks at EPS as well for joining us, as well as all the civic staff continuing to focus on managing this this public health challenge and all of the knock-on effects to it. I know it's not easy, and we've gotten out of the habit of thanking people for their work, but on top of everything else, it's a lot to manage. So thank you to each of you, and Dr. Sikora, through you to your colleagues, especially in the health side of things as things ramp up again here for you, despite the restrictions because of the lag time. Thank you to you and your colleagues on the health front lines. Our next EAC is, by default, there's the next one scheduled for. Someone could check.
It would be in approximately 1 month's time. We're looking into that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I think that's probably a reasonable default unless something arises, and most likely, just given how tight the schedule is here for April, it's more likely we would add if there's something emergent here, or that it's going to require fund allocation out of the COVID reserve, so that's properly going to come back to council anyway. So I'm not going to suggest we schedule an extra EAC at this point, because we've got plenty of other meetings to action stuff between now and the next EAC. But should the need arise, if the situation becomes more serious, we'll have the option to convene like this again if necessary, but I don't foresee a need for that right now.
The date is May 6th.
Okay, well, we'll check in then by default unless something changes. So I think that's all we can do at this meeting at this point. So I will adjourn this EAC with thanks to all of you for your attention, and we'll see some of you back this afternoon for